Hey, we're back on Chaplain Chat, and we're doing I have Rob here. Rob has written a book called Walking It Out. Now, how do I do this God thing? And there is the book. I have actually got the author. And Rob, his first book was Surrender the Way Out. This is his second book. And what a hoot. We're doing a whole series of these Chaplain Chats on different chapters. And this chapter is called Heart of Stone. And so what the heck does that mean? Heart of Stone.
Heart of Stone. When I got sober, I went through one of these 28-day spin dry programs, and there was a therapist that we had that would do sessions with us a few times a week, and she had us do an exercise. She had us do several. She was sharp. She was very good. Her name was Carrie. And she asked us to do a writing assignment one day.
By the way, this is in the chapter.
Yeah.
This is very good. I want to, yeah, this is very good. This got to me. Go ahead.
Yeah. And in this assignment, we were to write a letter to someone important in our lives. And I don't remember the exact details. I was still kind of in a fog, and it was early in my recovery process. Anyway, so we were supposed to come back to group, and after we'd written this letter, then we were supposed to read it out loud to the group, and then we would talk about it. And so it came my turn, and I had written a letter to my dad, who had passed away about 2 years prior, and it was a very emotional letter. But the thing that really struck me was that I was reading this letter that was full of emotion. But as I was reading it, in my peripheral vision, I was kind of picking up on how the people in the group were responding to it, and Carrie, the therapist. And when I was done, the thing that I noticed was that everybody else was they were very moved by it.
Yeah.
And Carrie was looking at me, and she's the kind of person that it not much surprises her or takes her aback. But she was looking at me, and her jaw was just hanging open. And her comment to me had to do with the complete disconnectedness on an emotional level that she was seeing in me as I read this very moving letter to my father. And so I think that was a very vivid illustration to me of just how comatose I was emotionally.
Wow.
I grew up being a sensitive, caring kid, and I think that was probably part of the reason why drugs and alcohol became so important to me, because I could deal with disappointment and rejection a lot easier if I medicated. But what had happened over the years is I had gone into a coma after all the things that had been a part of my life, living a very conflicted life, living the life of an addict. You are forced to do things that you never would normally do. And I lived a dual life, and I did a lot of things that I never ever would have done otherwise.
Rob, I'm reading this, and the reason I'm getting into this because I'm seeing myself in this. In a sense, we're all addicts. As a chaplain in the jail, I see guys there, and I'm no different than them. We all been in jail some way or another. So I'm reading this. Rob, you talk about, I wanted to get this right because you talk about physical, emotional, and spiritual sobriety. And then you talk about a three-headed dragon. And here's the picture that came into my mind. God tells Moses to get his chosen people out of Egypt, and he leads them out of Egypt. It's one thing to get out of Egypt. It's another thing to get Egypt out of you. And that's what came to my mind. What's this three-headed dragon thing you're talking about?
Well, the name Three-Headed Dragon comes from a film that I saw in a recovery program that I went through 3 or 4 times in the early 90s. There was a film that we saw. But it was a real eye-opener for me. So many times in treating addiction, it's looked at as just a one-faceted issue. It's not. It's not just the addiction and going through withdrawal and then just staying away from the substance. There's 3 elements. It's physical, emotional, and spiritual. And unless you deal with all 3, you'll never stay free. You've got to deal with the physical, and that means you go through withdrawal. That means you stay away from the substance.
Yeah, I would call that getting out of Egypt.
Yes.
You got to get out of it. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah.
And the source of freedom is a relationship with God, and that's the spiritual element. You get out of Egypt, you get free, but unless you have a relationship with God,
wow, this is good.
You get sucked back into the slavery from whence you came.
Yeah.
And but the other part is the emotion, the emotional element. We don't just come to Jesus and all of a sudden everything's beautiful, wonderful, and cool. Emotionally, I was a mess. Emotionally, when we start using, we stop developing emotionally. So when I got clean and sober at age 44, I was probably, maybe emotionally, maybe 20, 21. So there's a lot more to be done when somebody gets clean and sober than just stopping using and beginning to walk with God. God begins to walk us through a process where we grow and develop not only spiritually but emotionally.
Wow. The book is called Walking It Out. Now, how do I do this God thing? The chapter was called Heart of Stone. The next chapters, as I'm looking through this book, it might be one of your shorter chapters. It's called Where is My Pink Cloud? We're going to talk about that next time because that's kind of an interesting thought. But walking it out. How do I do this God thing? That's the book that we're talking about. And I'm covering it up there. There it is. Walking it out. And I always want to remind people, this is great. We're doing a whole series of these Chaplain Chats. You can go on Amazon.com and get this book. You can go to your website, which is
robfammang.com.
Yep. And or get a hold of me.
Mm-hmm.
But,
or anywhere books are sold.
Or anywhere.
Your local bookstore can order them. Anywhere books are sold, you can get this book.
I think it's something that applies to us all.
It does in that we all have stuff.
We all have stuff.
Yeah. Some of us, our stuff looks like addiction. There's a lot of people that have never done anything along this line, but they still got stuff.
Wow.
We all got stuff.
Well, Rob, I want to thank you. We're going to do some more of these, but I want to thank you guys for watching. And Rob, thank you for being on.
Chaplain Chat.
All right. Okay. And that's